welcome to this ordinary meeting of Nelson City Council on Thursday the 21st of June, and I'll ask that you all stand for the opening prayer.
Almighty God, sovereign in all things, bless this city and its people. Guide us in local government each day, that our decisions may be wise and just, and magnify your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Kia ora tātou. Today we'll also be sending our prayers to the Prime Minister, who is in labour, and Robin is promising to give me updates as we go. So if we have a birth during our meeting, we'll be able to acknowledge the birth of a very auspicious day, only the second baby to be born while our Prime Minister has been in office. So last time in 1990 with Benazir Bhutto, I think. So yeah, so there we go. A little bit of his history perhaps will be made today, or depending on how things go tomorrow. So welcome to this meeting of Nelson City Council. I have some apologies this morning. I have one apology from Councillor Laurie for lateness, and I'm happy to move that we accept Councillor Laurie's apology. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Walker. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. If there are any other apologies for leaving early or needing to step out to attend other meetings, could I have those now, please? Councillor Barker.
2 p.m. I have to leave.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Anybody else? Right, thank you. All right, confirmation of the order of business will be, I think it's set out on the agenda sheet. Just a reminder that we are live streaming the meeting, and I'll ask you to remember to use your microphones, both to turn them on and to turn them off. For those people who are here to speak in public forum, to make the microphone go, you just press the button, the red light comes on, it's on, and then press it again, and then it turns itself off. So welcome to our youth councillors. Welcome, Jenna. It's lovely to see you here today, and also to see you, Robbie. Looking forward to your contribution to the meeting. So remember, of course, any time you're welcome to ask questions, and you're welcome to give your opinions on matters as we head into debate, everything but voting. So at this point in time. Public forum this morning. Since the agenda was issued, we have some additions to the public forum. We're going to have the members from the Nelson Farmers Market as set out on your agenda sheet, and we have Andrew Lowe and Dominic Ferretti who are here, and a number of other supporters and stallholders from the market. We also have a presentation from Jim Cable from the Nelson Residents Association, and Jim will be speaking in relation to the Memorandum of Understanding for the Nelson Regional Sewerage Business Unit and the amended terms of reference for the same entity. And then we have a presentation from Jana McLaren, and I have written down here Jude Wu and Jessica Powers, and it may just be Jana that we're seeing today, on funding for Natureland Wildlife Trust. So there are 3 public forum items this morning. Is there anybody else in the public gallery that was wishing to speak to public forum today? No, that's right, I've got everybody. All right. Councillors, just a reminder around interest. So if you have any interest related to a matter on the agenda, I'd please ask you to attend to that in the usual way. And just a reminder for councillors to keep your interest register up to date. It is important that you do that, and I just encourage you to just check in at least every few months, just to make sure that you actually have got that up to date. I do find I'm sitting on several other boards, and I do find that we usually have that presented at the start of every meeting, and inevitably in the lives that we lead, we end up going on to governance roles and off governance roles throughout the term of council. So important that we keep those up to date. So I don't think there's anything further to cover in terms of process for the meeting. Hopefully everybody's got their papers. It's a reasonably large looking agenda today, but of course one of the items in there is the adoption of the long-term plan, and so today we are essentially striking a rate. The plan was signed out to go to audit some weeks ago, and audit have completed their review, and you should have tabled today the report. So that's been tabled, and that should be sitting with you, I believe. And there's also tabled some amended recommendations to one of the items in relation to the Nelson Regional Sewerage Business Unit, and the Chief Executive will just speak to that tabled document as we get to the item later in the agenda. Right, no questions? Excellent, then we'll get underway, and I'll invite Andrew Lowe and Dominic Ferretti to join the meeting. Welcome. Morena, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Councillors. I am Andrew Lowe, Chairperson of the Nelson Farmers Market. Behind me are the members of the committee. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today. We would like to thank you for your commitment to supporting us in our move to Maitai Boulevard, and we've been there for 9 months now. While the location is aesthetically pleasing, a lovely spot for a market and a great place for families on a calm sunny day, there are two major factors we didn't foresee. Firstly, the impact the weather would be so bad, and secondly, the distance from the CBD. In terms of the weather, the winds are very strong and gusty there, and the site is exposed from all directions. On days when the wind is minimal elsewhere, it still seems to funnel through the Maitai Boulevard. These winds are dangerous, extreme and dangerous at times, with no shelter available, and have wreaked havoc with gazebos no matter how well anchored, and has become a health and safety issue. We have had gazebos damaged and destroyed due to the wind, and stallholders' products have been damaged. Distance from the CBD, we still have some very loyal customers who are able to come. Some love the venue and have gained a few new customers, but we have lost a significant number of customers due to the distance from their work, with not enough time to come and shop in their half-hour lunch breaks. Despite a much larger than usual investment in advertising, we cannot get more customers to the market due to its distance from the CBD. This is a limiting factor to the market's success. Most importantly, the viability of the market. A significant number of the stallholders have noticed a 20 to 50% drop in income during all seasons and weather conditions, which is not sustainable in the long term. If the market loses more stalls, it will become unsustainable and put the market at risk. In order to meet the needs of our client base and continue to grow, it is imperative that the farmers market returns to the CBD. Because the Wednesday market is during working hours, we simply need to be close to the workers. We would like to revisit the Buxton car park and ask the council for assistance to facilitate the move as soon as possible. Again, the farmers market has considered other options in the CBD, but many of these do not meet the criteria required. Sorry, we've just had to edit this, so we understand the council will be discussing this and respectively request the council grants us the opportunity to shift back to the CBD. The council is always looking for ways to revitalise the CBD, to bring people back into the centre, and we feel that the farmers market will definitely do this again. Additionally, we do contribute to other retailers who have noted that they were much busier on a Wednesday when we were in the CBD, and have since been quieter since we have left. Another option could be the 1903s top of Trafalgar Street if they were closed off to traffic again over the summer and the area was available. The area available supported a vibrant, cohesive market. We would consider moving there for the summer months. And yes,
in order to free up car parks over that busy period.
Yes, with the possible move to Buxton. We hope that this is acceptable to you, and we feel it would enable the market to rebuild its customer base and public profile and help boost the vitality of Nelson City. We would work with the council to ensure the impact of our presence at Buxton is positive, and we know that retailers around Buxton are very supportive of us being there. And we are a genuine draw card, and we do help to contribute to a more vibrant and dynamic CBD. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. We greatly appreciate the time and effort the council have put into considering our relocation, and hope the council will favourably consider a move to Buxton. And again, thank you, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Andrew, thank you. We've got some questions from councillors. Andrew, just thank you very much for the constructive way that you've engaged with the staff and coming today with some options. Obviously, we've got a paper later on in the agenda. We'll be considering this matter. Just one thing I wanted to check with you. I remember when we were looking, when you had the proposal last time to use Buxton Square, you'd done quite a lot of work talking to the retailers, and I remember when I did my walk around, they were all quite positive and supportive. Have you engaged with them recently to make sure that that's still the case?
Not just recently,
Oh,
no.
right, all right, so we might just need to think about that as we go
Yes,
through.
that's right.
Thank you.
We have to
All right, I've got a
revisit
list
that.
of questions. I've got, first I've got the Deputy Mayor, then I've got Councillor Laurie, and then I've got Councillor Barker, and we'll see how we go for time, but that may fill up our full time. Well, we'll see how we go. If everyone's quick, then you'll get in the list, Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, gentlemen, for coming today. You've been away from Morrison for how long now?
9 months.
9 months.
Yes. Yeah.
Can I ask you just a question? Have you been back to Morrison Square recently and said to them, listen guys, what's the chances of us revisiting the possibility of coming back here again in the future?
I have gone back there with that option. As of yet, we're still waiting upon a reply. They were going to do a survey through their retailers and obviously talk to the landlord, but that is an option we have looked at, but as yet we have no answer.
So, just staying that point for a moment, did you get any feedback from the other retailers in the square that your absence had any effect at all on their business?
Yes, that's right. Like the Morrow Cafe said, they used to be quite busy on Wednesday. Now they're very quiet. Across the road, Mariposa, Lambretta, all commenting the same things. That are very quiet on Wednesdays. Used to be a busy day.
So, would I be presumptuous in suggesting that you might have an opportunity to return to the fold?
Well, we're considering that option. Yes, and it's just up in the air at the present point in time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Laurie.
Thanks. The retailers through the chair, the retailers in Buxton, were they supportive of you being there, that you've spoken to, were they supportive of you being there 12 months of the year?
As far as we understand, yes, yeah.
So they didn't express through the chair to you concerns about loss of parking for their customers?
No, they were more interested in drawing people into that area.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, last time you guys were here, I asked you the question, why don't you consider doing it on Saturdays? And I asked that question because every market I've been to around the country that I've been to are Saturday mornings when people are not working, and people love going to the market on Saturday morning. Why do you insist on having it on Wednesday?
A lot of our stalls actually attend the Saturday market, and the other reason being the Wednesday will complement the Saturday market. For a lot of the cafes and restaurants, they can buy fresh on a Wednesday, and it allows them to buy fresh on a Saturday, so they can do a midweek shop. And also for a lot of families, the same option. Obviously a lot of people don't have huge supplies in their houses anymore, so it allows them that option to buy fresh midweek as well as on the weekend. So in a way, what we do, we like to think actually complements the Saturday.
Thank you. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Andrew and Dominic, thank you for your presentation. This council fully supports what you're trying to do because you're bringing vibrancy and vitality to the CBD, and You've done it in the past and you do it again. The question's around this other option that you briefly passed over, 1903 Square.
Yes.
I want to know what you envisage there, because that has potential as far as I'm concerned. Do you mean blocking off the whole top end of that Trafalgar Street for, say, half a day on a Wednesday? Is that what you're leading towards?
Well, if that was an option, yes. If that option was presented to us, that would certainly be a very attractive option, that's for sure.
Well, with one more question on that, I don't know whether I should, looking at you there, are you happy? It's the extras around the stalls and that type of thing, the stock and the vehicles. Would that pose a problem in that area, do you think?
I guess most stalls are based in a gazebo, so a lot of the stock would be contained within the confines of the gazebos. Vehicles would have to be obviously parked off-site.
Yeah, some can park there, some would have to park off-site. Yes. In Buxton, we could actually all park on-site, gazebos in front of the vehicles, so we don't have to find a space for another 30 car parks somewhere else. So that's the kind of attractive thing about Buxton, we thought, that we're trying to minimise the impact on car parks. We can all just be contained within the market area, no other additional car parks required.
All right, thank you very much. Just to clarify, when you gave the presentation, you talked about Buxton winter 1903 summer, or are you thinking either 1903 could work all year round, but noting the problems here, Dominic?
It would work year round. I mean, a permanent site is best for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Yep. All right, thank you very much for coming in today, and thank you for the constructive suggestions that you have for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now invite Mr. Jim Cable to present. Welcome, Jim.
Madam Mayor, councillors. I speak today on my own behalf, but with the tacit backing of the Residents Association, with whom I've discussed with senior officers and generally this, but essentially this is my presentation. Being here today makes me recall the first time I addressed council on the 16th of December 2011. I did so because of Mayor Michio's suddenly sprung Maori ward proposal, which was voted on and passed by council on the 3rd of November 2011. My plea to council on 16 December 2011 caused nothing to change, but I recall Councillor Fulton, then a new councillor, asking me several treaty-related questions which were then, like this matter today, nothing whatsoever to do with the treaty. However, on the 21st of May 2012, when the matter of a Maori ward was polled, 79.4% of voters voted down the prospect. The poll cost Nelson City Council $80,000, that unexpected imposition being funded out of the council's parking reserve account. Councillors, I'm here today on account of today's agenda item 12, and I've been handed a subsequent amended thing this morning, which doesn't really change much, although it brings the words "in principle" in, which do have something of a small legal implication. The thrust of agenda item 12 seeks to amend the Memorandum of Understanding in terms of reference for the Nelson Regional Sewerage Business Unit and Nelson Tasman Regional Landfill Business Unit to provide both voting rights and remuneration for representatives of iwi, remuneration to be set at $8,000 per annum for the first term of appointment. Councillors, contrary to whatever you've been led to believe, nothing in the words of the treaty makes any sort of implication that would endorse this. How many times have we heard Captain Hobson's 1840 words, "Hei iwi tahi tātou"? The meaning intended, we are now one people. Now, one people, but the implications implicit, inherent, in agenda item 12 look very much like the positioning of unelected Maori representatives by stealth. There's only one reason, perhaps, only one reason why council should appoint persons to council committees, and that should be their capability or their expertise. In this country, race alone should never be a reason. Particularly in a matter of sewerage. I don't think that there's any physiological differences in the way any of us dispose of waste product. And this thing, to me, stacks up extraordinarily. I don't know how it's ever come to be applied to a council in this form. If I can close to some extent by saying Siraparana Ngāta noted that Clause 1 of the treaty handed over the mana and sovereignty of New Zealand to Queen Victoria and her descendants forever. That is the outstanding fact that today, but for that shield of sovereignty handed over to Her Majesty and her descendants, I doubt whether there would be a free Maori race in New Zealand today. He added, let me acknowledge further that in the whole of the world, I doubt whether any native race has been so well treated by European people as the Maori of New Zealand. Now, this is the...
Councillor Laurie, please don't interrupt our public forum, people. It does delay the meeting.
All I wish to make the point is that if there is any justification other than some sort of touchy-feely belief that taking this step is going to in any way benefit the people of Nelson as a whole, hei iwi tahi tato, then councillors, please deeply consider it before you vote.
Thank you, Mr. Cable. Any questions for Mr. Cable? Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In regards to that, taking consonance of Māori culture, and you were talking about disposing of waste, some would say they have a different worldview on the disposal of waste. Is there some comment on that? Any reason you think they can't put an input?
No, I don't think it comes down to that. I'm thinking that the treatment for all of us, and I'm including every single race in this country, is handled by sewerage processes, by local bodies, the way they are. I don't think that there's any cultural implications or anything that would suggest cultural implications, and therefore to observe something that on the face of it appears to be nothing more than politically correct is not the business of council. We should be sticking with the facts and the necessary actions that are required in the circumstances as they benefit everyone.
Mr. Cable, we're sticking with the facts. I just want to clarify, I'm a little bit confused because there's no change here to the MOU in relation to iwi representation. That's been there for a very, very long time. In fact, I think since the beginning of the establishment of the Regional Sewerage Business Unit. So is your objection to the fact that there is a recommendation here in principle to support a payment for the contribution of the expertise that that person would be bringing forward, or is it because that person would actually be meaningfully able to vote on decisions?
No, my objection is purely that I don't think anything in this country or anywhere should be decided on the basis of the implications of race. What I'm saying is, if there is an issue, deal with it in practicality that the issue requires, deal with it with people who are capable and have the necessary expertise to handle whatever the requirements are, and do it straightforward like that. Don't introduce factors that are completely irrelevant.
All right, no, I understand that. So you're coming in to tell us that you'd like us to cease the existing practice of Nelson City Council. I understand that. Thank you very much. Now, if there's any further questions, thank you very much, Mr. Cable. Now, our next public forum is from Yana McLaren and others. Oh, you're not Yana? Hello, welcome. welcome Jana here to speak about funding for the Natureland Wildlife Trust. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Rees, that this was possible on this short notice. Now it ended up with cars and not my son, but and councillors, hello. I'm here on behalf of an ever-growing group of parents that is supporting Natureland and is concerned. I say growing because we're quite busy with other stuff and it seems like we're not catching up on politics that quickly. And so whenever I talk to someone at the playground or somewhere else, parents quite often are surprised, shocked and concerned. So I think we're still growing. Jude and Jessica, who kind of started to be active with me, can't be here today, but instead I have two other mothers that came to support me and help me with my nervousness. Even when I'm at Natureland itself, talking to someone, just mentioning it, thinking they should know, they actually are not aware of the whole issue that went down. We as parents value Natureland as a great place to bring our kids, but not only as that, we value it also and because of its efforts in conservation. And have you been to Natureland? Have you ever visited Natureland since the management has changed? It would be great if you came along maybe on a summer day, not when it's that cold, but maybe my son can show you the things that are really great about it. I really challenge the ones that haven't been to check it out. I heard it changed a lot. I haven't been there before the management changed, so I can't say anything about the state it was in. But now, for me, it's a zoo that I leave with a good feeling, which is rare. I take my son about once a week, and he loves it. It would be very disappointed if that changed because the quality changed or they had to find new homes for animals because of lack of funding. We do appreciate the mixture of domesticated animals, exotic animals, and especially the native birds in Tuatara. And while we know most of it is happening in the background, we're very happy to know that they do the rehabilitation program and the breed and release. Maybe Natureland could do something to put that more into the public eye. Maybe even Nelson could do something to put that more into the public eye. I think also for tourists that might be interesting. A friend of mine told me if she had known about it, she might have visited. To us, it's actually important that Natureland does these things. It gives us the chance to teach our children about our native species, especially those under threat. We can show them what can be done and how important it is. And as we all read and hear about more endangered wildlife, we and our children often feel helpless and clueless about what can be done. And Natureland's conservation work gives us that sense of hope, responsibility, and control. My son is over there. I was hoping he would sit here and make some noises that he learned at Natureland. He can copy waking up moreporks, and his dad and him, they disagree on what the sound really sounds like, and I think my son is closer. And with that, he taught me why it's also ruru, not morepork. And he can tell a weka, well, from our garden, and a kiwi apart, which I think, he's only 2 years old. A lot of people still can't, especially when you go overseas. And yeah, I mean, we're aware that me talking here right now doesn't change anything about your decision. However, we're hoping that me talking here right now and making you aware of us supporting Natureland is making decisions maybe easier if you review the issue again in a year's time or half a year's time, and we really want you to be aware that there's a big support in the parent community. Yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jana. Any questions for Jana? Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Jana and friends, for coming today. If you're deciding to put money towards a petting zoo or native bird breeding, would you rather it to go to Natureland or Sanctuary, for example?
So one thing, I wouldn't call it a petting zoo, because it's not just a petting zoo. And secondly, I've heard experts say that it would actually be more expensive to establish a breed and release program with the Sanctuary than keeping it at, just keeping it where it is right now.
I think it's in following that through the Mayor. So it's a zoo, but you would rather it change the direction from council's perspective to being a breeding facility?
No, I'm not saying that. I think it should stay a zoo, but they have already established the breed and release program. They have the rehabilitation program. And I mean, I'm not an expert. I guess you should ask the experts and talk to them. You should talk to the trust of the Sanctuary and the trust of Natureland about this. But I've been told that it would be more expensive, and the expertise isn't there within the Sanctuary Trust. So it would be more expensive to actually establish that than just keeping it at Natureland.
Final question, Councillor. Final question. Going back, we have spoken to many experts and we visited Natureland and Sanctuary. Doc, do you think Doc should be playing a role in this? Doc have received a huge increase, which is great, in funding, and Doc had been partially involved in that, and my belief from the expertise reports we got that they've pulled out of their resources in Natureland. Do you think Doc should be taking up what you're asking for, which I think is a great request?
Well, I think we should do as much as possible. And so if Doc would start a program like that, great. But I guess if you ask me as a ratepayer, where do I want my money in, and we're playing a zero-sum game, then, well, we have a certain amount of rates that you go. So either our rates go up or we take money from somewhere else. I actually would be happy to pay higher rates, but I guess that is not every Nelsonian some thing. But I think it's actually, I don't know how many dollars it would be to increase it by the 80,000 on my rates, but I guess there is also some other projects that I would support, and I would be happy to pay a little bit more rates. And if Doc takes up another program, I'm happy with that too. I think, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Fulton.
Hi, thank you so much for coming and submitting. Do you think that there is a large enough community will then that you could be doing some volunteer fundraising for Natureland? Like the Brook Sanctuary has a massive fundraising pool. I think there was 9 million raised for the fence and that kind of thing. Do you think that maybe that's something you could be looking at as an option to support Natureland?
Well, as I said, I just pretty much got into the subject. I kind of assumed this is all going the way I think it should go, and so it was a bit of a surprise when I heard that it wasn't. I don't know, maybe I get 20 minutes a day where I actually can talk to people, or actually, no, actually it's less. Sorry. So I don't really have a big overview yet on how many people would be active like that. We're really only getting started, and I'm sure that Natureland will do its best to raise money, and we will try. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Jana, thank you very much for coming in to speak to us today and for answering questions. And it's just lovely to have some mokopuna in Tamariki in our council chamber. It's very, very lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can I just add, the meeting might be interested to know that in light of the comments you just made, the Prime Minister's gone into Labour.
If you've been here on time, you would have heard us actually say special prayers for the Prime Minister, Councillor Laurie. Yes, so funnily enough, we are able to keep up with the news. Yeah, so I'd have to say is the women in the room who have given birth are actually very, very excited about this moment to see a woman in leadership. As we've said, we'll just repeat it for you. Second time in history, so it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And Robin is, Councillor Laurie, just for your updates, to repeat, Robin's going to give us updates. She's keeping track, and so if the baby's born while we're still here, we'll be able to hopefully record that in the minutes in the appropriate way. Moving on, the confirmation of the minutes. Thank you. We'll move to page 21 through 33. The minutes from the 3rd of May. Someone care to move that these are a true and correct record? Thank you, Councillor Barker, seconded by Councillor Courtney. If there are no corrections, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Moving on to the minutes of the 15th of May, pages 34 through 83. Moved by Councillor Courtney. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for those minutes? Thank you, Councillor Walker. Any corrections or additions? That case, correction, Councillor Dalberg.
Just on page 49, you've got me there as present, and down below is an apology. I definitely wasn't here. I was at a funeral in Westport.
Well, thank you. Well spotted. All right. So we'll move with that correction. I'll put it. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Now we move to the extraordinary meeting of the 24th of May, pages 84 through 87 of your agenda. Does somebody care to move those minutes? I'm happy to move them. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Barker. Any corrections or additions? No, in that case I will put the motion. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Moving on to the recommendations from committees, we have the Planning and Regulatory Committee, 29th of May, to adopt the revised Nelson Biodiversity Strategy. I'm happy to move, seconded by Councillor McGurk. Any questions? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Moving on to the hearings panel other, on the 5th of June, we have a recommendation in relation to the granting of an easement. Would somebody care to move that recommendation? It's recorded as under the hearings panel, although I would have thought it might have come out of a... It was hearings panel. Who was on that hearings panel? Councillor Dalberg's happy to move that.
Could it be me?
And do we have a seconder?
No page number. No pages.
Do we have a seconder?
5th of June.
Seconder, thank you, Councillor Barker. Any questions? In that case, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Governance Committee, Councillor Barker. We have some recommendations in relation to natural calamity, rates for emissions, and summary of approved applications. Thank you, Councillor Barker. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dalberg, you're happy to second?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions for the Governance Committee? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried.
Page 84.
Now we have the Regional Transport Committee recommendations, recommendation that's come through. So the Regional Transport Committee met on the 18th of June, and we have a proposed recommendation. I just need to confirm with the Governance Advisors that that is actually what was moved, so that has been moved. Councillor Rutledge, would you care to move in terms of the recommendation, which is to approve the Regional Land Transport Plan mid-term review and the Regional Public Transport Plan has been moved. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Noonan. Thank you. Any questions? Any debate? In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. We have now page 88 through 100 of your agenda. We received a petition. It came in to the Customer Service Centre and up to my office, so I have received that. Unfortunately, the petitioners were unable to be here to speak today, but I wanted to make sure that we did just bring this through into the appropriate records. So we have a recommendation here to receive the petition, and then a request that a report on the options for the wild deer population in Marsden Valley be presented to a future Sports and Recreation Committee. And I understand it's going to the Sports and Recreation committee, because that is where the delegations would lie for such matters in relation to reserves. You're happy with that, Councillor Skinner? Yes. All right, in that case, if I was to move that, are you happy to second that recommendation? Thank you. Any questions in relation to this item? Councillor Fulton, followed by Councillor Rutledge, followed by Councillor Laurie, followed by Councillor Noonan. Heavens. Yeah, that's a herd of questions, Councillor McGurk. Right.
Yes, I'm sorry, I can't actually find in the agenda where I read it yesterday, but somewhere it mentions that they wanted to encourage the wild deer population in Marsden Valley, and they believe that once, with future subdivision, that the wild population would then disperse into the hills or into areas which could be of biodiversity significance, and that concerned me somewhat. It seemed a little bit worrying that if this was allowed to happen, we might end up with a bigger problem into the future in the wild and harder to handle. So my question is, when the report from the staff comes back, will they take that into consideration?
Yes. Councillor Rutledge.
Madam Mayor, a question on the delegation. This is a pest species, and I would have thought they would ordinarily fall under planning and regulatory. So,
I'm sure that couldn't be the case. Robin.
I believe they're actually not pest, the deer that were flying right.
Chief Executive.
I understand the area where they may be eating out is the cemetery, and that's where the culling operation could well have happened, but is on hold at the moment. So that's the specific problem we have.
So we're dealing with on the basis of land, and I tell you what, I'm going to resist very strongly, Councillor Rutledge, if you try and tell me there's a cross committee link, so therefore it should come to council. Committee chair's very happy to deal with it, so it's heading in that direction.
Yeah, just noting that it is indeed, these are well recognised pest species in the New Zealand environment, and
Councillor Laurie, and we're speaking to the recommendation, which is to call for a report.
Sounds like a good idea to me. I know that from this letter that there are 110 signatures and there are 130 homes in the valley, but I don't know how many deer there are. Can anyone tell us how many deer we're talking about?
I'm sure that'll come forward in the report. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As Chair of Community Services in charge of cemeteries.
Oh, goodness. Now, come on, Pat. I don't need this with Cal. Come on.
So I'm just querying where the delegation, where the issue actually is. Is it in the valley or is it in the cemetery? Because if the minute it crosses the cemetery line, I'd like to know.
Okay. Right.
I'd like to be kept informed.
Councillor, I'm serious.
No,
seriously, quite seriously, Councillor Noonan would like to be kept informed.
I would certainly like to know.
Okay, we'll seriously keep you informed. Councillor
Keep them into the right area to eat.
Yeah, I suppose it's a jurisdiction problem. I have a real issue with this. I think some of these, I think have captured a rather romantic view of Bambi or something like that, because, quite frankly, deer are basically possums on stilts.
So we're not debating the substantive matter, Councillor.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering about the scope of what the review was going to be. Are we talking about deer going into the cemetery? Are we talking about the movement of deer as a vector of bovine TB? Are we talking about the impact of deer on the land in the valley itself?
Councillor, there'll be a report coming. What I suggest is that, given the absolute keen interest from a number of councillors, that you get in a huddle with Councillor Skinner and the appropriate group manager, and the group managers can toss a coin for who that's going to be, and maybe even 2 of them might need to be involved in this report, or 3, and sort it out.
All are very welcome to attend the
I'm ready to put it. Okay, ready to put it. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the Mayor's report. Oh dear. Page 101 to 143 of the agenda. Now let me have a little look at what we've got here. We have got to receive the Mayor's report, then we've got we're just doing a catch-all for the conduct review panel, and then we've got some standing orders matters that we wanted to cover off. So the governance advisors have been doing a very good job of trying to line up our misalignment, and they've got there's some recommendations in there. So let me just go to the appropriate page, make sure we've covered everything off that I needed to. Oh yes, and then we've got some remits. Okay, so those are the recommendations that are in there. I think they're reasonably self-explanatory. There are, just in terms of the remits, they're all attached there for you. So if you can give me any feedback on those by the date that I've asked for, the 6th of July, that would be really useful. So for when I head off to the conference, some of them you'll note that we have supported, and some of them have gone through zone meetings and other things. I understand there might be one more under negotiation at the moment, which is in relation to a similar thing that, when vehicles are stopped in terms of drug testing, so that's still just working its way through and may come as a late remit. So it's just some further information to be discussed with the police in relation to that one. So I'm happy to move in full the what is there. I'm also happy to take questions if you prefer to do that. So I'll move it. I won't call for a seconder yet, just in case we need to make some changes. Councillor Delberg.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. On your remit here, and people putting it in, I imagine by email, is there a consideration that we have like a little workshop about the remits and have a discussion, or are we comfortable that it's just by email?
You can have a chat over lunch if you want to today and have a bit of a look at them. I find the best thing to do is, because what happens is sometimes they change on the day on the floor, so there'll be an amendment to them there, but it's useful to take some guidance. I mean, you'll be fairly, you'll see the ones where I've been given our name on behalf of the council to support them, so you'd be reasonably sure that I'll speak in support of those. But we can certainly do a run through over lunch today if you want to. I don't really mind, but email's fine. I'm very flexible.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just more after last year's comments about the conference, I was thinking I was making that appointment if those people wish to have a discussion. Maybe we should. I'm more than comfortable that we just do it by emails.
Well, we've got our normal process, so we've established our, I'm the presiding delegate, we've got our other delegates filled out. That's all had to go to LGNZ already because they need to have that on their record, so I think we're pretty good. But if you had any feedback now, I'm happy to take some time now if you want to do that. So Councillor Laurie?
I have a more general question, if it's okay. I think it's great that we get as many people to the conferences each year as we possibly can from Nelson City, but from memory, we passed a policy, or we agreed on a rule at the start of the term or last year that we would only have councillors funded to attend one conference each per term. Now, I'm aware that there are two councillors who are going, at least two councillors who are going to the conference this year, who went to last year's conference. Are they paying their own way?
I think you look after your own responsibilities there in terms of, I might just ask for an office talk about this because it doesn't, and it's not something I deal with. Chief Executive? Apologies, that's for your, sorry, just for the public record, it's not something that I'm involved in. You have your own responsibilities to deal with those matters, and I trust that you've dealt with them appropriately, but Chief Executive?
So, my recollection is that the only two councillors that wanted to go to the conference this year were two councillors that went last year, and my recollection is that they also have an allocation for their own training budget, and they've indicated they want to use their training budget to go to the conference. So in some ways there was a slight conflict, but in my view we're better to be represented at the conference than not. So I was supportive of those two councillors going again.
So through the chair, I absolutely agree, and my position's always been we should send as many people as possible every year because they're fantastic events, and you get brilliant access to experts and other elected representatives around the country. But before you were here, Mr. Doherty, we had a debate around this table about this very matter, and the majority of us agreed, which disappointed me, that people should only be allowed to use ratepayers' funds to go to one conference per term. Now, what happened to that?
Councillor, are you speaking to the Chief Executive?
I'm speaking to whoever can answer the question.
I think if you have a look at your policy, there'll be something in there. So there'll be a policy that is there, and if you want to amend the policy, who deals with this policy? Who would this be? This would sit under which part of council? Oh, Mary. Hello, Mary. If you could just use one of those microphones, that would be helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Because people told me. Yeah.
Mind you, councillor, I've got a feeling from memory you've been to several previously as well. So what we have is had some come through. But anyway, Mary will help us out.
Through the chair.
No, that's all right. I'll go to Mary. Mary, talk us through it.
Councillor Laurie, could you just give me your question again and I'll see if I can help.
So I remember a vigorous debate in this chamber last year where the council passed a rule or a policy that we would only allow councillors to attend one conference, one LGNZ annual conference on ratepayer dime per term. And it really annoyed me, and that's why I've got an issue about it today. And Madam Mayor, I remember it was an issue you felt very strongly about at the time. So if I had known, for example, that we were able to attend more than one conference per term, I would have seriously considered going to this year's conference. I suspect others might have as well.
Oh, okay, I need to know what's in the policy. No, I understand that, and I get the question too. So we'll just try and be respectful and polite to the staff. Thank you, Mary. I think there's a policy. So if you might want to just find that policy wording for us.
I'll do that.
Right.
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's actually a set of criteria, and from memory, but I will look it up, the wording is it is suggested or it is recommended rather than it being laid down in stone. But I will look it up and come back to you if that's
That'd be good. That'd be great. Thank you.
I'm very sure that it is. It's suggested. I think it's around that wording. It's suggested, and there's some criteria, but councillors can come and ask to go to they can apply to go to other ones. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm not aware of who is going. Usually it's in the report as to who is going, and I've missed it somewhere.
I'm not sure if it's usually in the report, but no, it's not usually in the report, but I don't,
it was
who is
last
going?
year, so.
Guys, Jenny deals with this for me, so. Councillors Delberg, Rutledge and Fulton, and I'm going because there's an expectation that mayors do go to every local government conference. Can't always do that.
And me.
Oh, and the Chief Executive's going too. Because, yes, Chief Executive's going because there's an expectation that Chief Executives go to the local government conference as well. And I have a sector meeting that I need to be at the same time because we run the sector meetings as well. All right, so, any...
Can I just say something?
I don't know. If it's going to be like the discussion around the deer, I'm not sure. Chief Executive. Away you go, come on, away you go, away you go, away you go, live dangerously.
So, obviously I'm not aware of the history of how bitterly things are debated, but what I was presented with was two effective parts of a policy that are in conflict. I mean, if councils decide that's the best use of their training budget and that they want to go to the conference, and I wasn't aware that it had been bitterly debated, I simply made a pragmatic decision that it made sense to let two councillors go again. It was as simple as that.
Sounds good to me, Pat.
Okay, that's good. Moving on. Right, so I've moved the recommendations. What's here? Somebody care to second them? Do we second it? Thank you, Councillor Delberg. That's excellent. Any further questions? Any debate? In that case, I put the motion. All those in favour? Aye, against, carried. And look, just really encourage you to give me some feedback on those remits if you feel so inclined. Now, moving on to, what do we got next up? Special housing area requests, and I'll invite the officers to join the meeting. Page 144 through 155 of your agenda. And we welcome to Mr. Upton. Mr. Upton, we'll take your report as read. Are there just, if there are any corrections or additions that we need to be aware of, you could perhaps highlight them now, but...
Through the chair, no corrections or amendments, so we can take it as read.
It's all good to go then. All right, so we've got the report. Any questions for Mr. Upton? Any questions? No questions? In case some, well, a question, Councillor Rutledge?
So I guess I'm interested to know your professional view on the likelihood of achieving a better price, given the increased interest. Well, am I on the wrong item? Sorry, Madam Mayor, I was drifting out for a second.
Special housing areas on page 144. Sorry. Right, any questions from Mr. Upton? No questions? Oh, question from Councillor McGurk.
I thought we'd already approved 3A, was it the land around?
Through the chair, we haven't had a request for 3A in the past, although 3B, C and D have been recommended.
Did one come in and get pulled back, do you know? Through you, Madam Chair?
Not that I'm aware of.
No, I think we might have had some discussion around this during the long-term plan deliberations.
Yeah.
Now it's coming forward as a special housing area.
Right.
Thank you. Any further questions? No, in that case, somebody care to move the recommendation? We've moved, thank you, Councillor Walker, seconded by Councillor Fulton. No further questions or debate. In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to page 156 of your agenda, which runs through to 218. Now, this is the adoption of the Development Contributions Policy. I'll invite Ms Gabellini to join the meeting. Welcome, Ms Gabellini. We'll take the report as read. Is there anything that you need to amend or highlight?
Through the chair, no.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms Gabellini? We've spent quite a bit of time on this. It's come back to us ready for adoption. I'm happy. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Barker. Seconded was Councillor McGurk. No questions. In that case, we'll go into debate. Any debate? No debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Now we go to the adoption of the long-term plan. Pages 219 to 232, and of course you've got the separate attachment in relation to this matter. And I'll invite Ms McDonald to join the meeting. This is basically the striking of the rate, and we've got Ms Harrison's on her way too, so we'll just work our way through this to make sure we do it in the appropriate order. So, welcome Ms McDonald and Ms Harrison. Is there, again, any amendments or corrections that we should be aware of? Or is it all ready to go?
Through the Mayor, no, it's all ready to go. In subsequent proofing, we've picked up a couple of typos, which we'll change under the recommendation 4, which gives the Chief Executive and the Mayor the ability to make minor editorial changes, but there's no substantive changes to what's presented.
All right, thank you. Now, are you happy for us to deal with this as one omnibus resolution if it gets moved in full? It's able to move in that direction, all right? In that case, any questions for the officers? Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just done in regards on page 225 in regards to payment for water volume rates. And it was just timely. I had a couple of residents approach me that they've been billed for their water rates, but when they received the bill, the due date was 20 days or 19 days from when they received the bill, when in previous bills they've been given more like 6 weeks, it'd been the month prior, so a bit more time to pay. So I'm only just bringing that up because on page 225 we're talking about when penalties incur, etc. And we've got here like billing month, July, and payment will be September, which seems fair. So is that what we've been doing in the past? And these particular customers will be an anomaly that they got billed close to when due payment?
So through the chair, I think it will just depend on when residents were read within the reading round. So these are typically the amounts of time that we give for people to pay.
Thank you. And Madam Mayor, so just in regards to that, so these dates we've got here like billing payments, so that's our policy or about to be a policy that we give at say July to September, for example, a couple of months to pay? Is that what should be happening and is happening? Or are you saying that it could be 3 weeks billing period?
So through the chair, it could be. I mean, obviously, through the chair, if you see that if the billing period's August, they're given until September to pay. And that's really around the processing time and trying to keep the efficiencies of the residential rounds all being due at the same day and the penalties being applied on the same day. So I think the rounds get changed every time. So one time they may get a shorter period of time and sometimes they get a longer period of time depending on when they're read within the round.
So Madam Mayor, I just want to make sure that we've captured the fact that when we're billing our ratepayers, our customers, that they're given a fair amount of time to pay. They were expecting the 20th of the following month, not expecting in this particular instance. It may have been a one-off, but they were looking for showing me the other rates and they've been given more than 2 to 3 weeks, but this time they were caught, Shivers, we've got 3 weeks, bills come in, we've got to pay by the 19th. If we don't, we're going to get penalised, and they were commenting to me, was that your type of service? I wouldn't expect that from any other billing. So I just want to make sure that we don't get in a situation where we're giving too short a lead time.
Ms Harrison, I have seen these come through before in terms of concerns about the time period for finding the money to be able to actually pay the bill. And I think what's your approach to that? So just picking up Councillor Skinner's discussion here. So someone receives a water bill and then how long do they have until they have to actually pay it? What's the minimum?
Through the chair, the minimum would be, so in terms of if they were billed later in August, we would typically bill that as a September date. So the minimum would be at least 3.5 weeks before a penalty would be applied. So you can see that the penalty doesn't go on the 20th, it goes on 5 days later.
All right, so what's your advice to people to avoid getting to a situation where they are, I've only got a matter of a few weeks to try and scramble together the money, given that household budgets are tight?
Give us a call or to put it onto a direct debit and smooth it out so that they're not getting lumpy payments.
All right, okay, so I think that's probably some very good advice.
And the reality is now the volumetric water bills are a lot lower because we've moved the annual charge onto the main rating bill. So the volumetric ones bills should be reasonably small now compared to how they have been previously. So, but I would recommend giving us a call or getting them put onto a direct debit.
All right, thank you. Anything further, Councillor Scott?
So you think, Madam Mayor, in this situation the person was an accountant and so it came through, and if they hadn't been sharp on looking at dates, they would have been caught out during a previous, mentioning it's a variation depending when the meter reading and the bill comes out. From their perspective, that from going for past process they had 4 to 6 weeks and then suddenly they were caught out with 2.5 weeks. If they hadn't been one to go through the figures carefully, they were like shivers, this could happen to anyone, and they're quite particular. So I just want to make that note raised. I know you've answered the question well, but I just want to make sure that we either make it very clear in the bill that this bill is going to be due a bit shorter, but earlier than you may have expected in the past, or B, that we have a very firm policy that we give enough fair time. And so I like your answer that they contact, and which is why I said to make contact council. I'm sure they will make some sort of allowance for that, so we just need to make that clear.
Thank you. I think this is good advice here, just about picking up the phone and trying to get on that direct debit. There was an accountant who's sort of around his 80s, was it, who quite likes writing with a pencil?
No, actually,
no, it wasn't. That's right.
It was a family member. So you can imagine, I sit down and answer. I've got a couple of questions, Tim.
That's all right. Thank you. All right. Any other questions for the officers? No, in that case, Councillor Delbert, I did have you on my list. All good. Away you go.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm assuming the open attachments are part of the discussion, and in my case, it's under Parks and Active Recreation, page 110. I notice we have all the parks and different facilities. We don't actually have Trafalgar Park for a performance measure. And I remember us having a discussion, that's one of our prime facilities. Maybe I'd just like to think that we had a performance measure in there for them.
No, Ms MacDonald?
Yes, through the chair, you'll appreciate because of the volume of facilities that we have, we can't put everyone in. I note that Trafalgar is an important one, but what we do have in the long-term plan is some money to do a strategic plan around Trafalgar Park and some of our other assets, which where we're looking at the standard we maintain them to, international level or other. And I think after that, then there might be some performance measures that we might want to bring in the next round. These ones have been audited and consulted on, so we don't have the ability to change them at this point. This is what went out, what council approved to go out to the public, and so to add another one in that hasn't been consulted on or seen by audit, that's not something that we can do now.
Madam, I apologise for being a bit late. I was, now I'm on the Sport and Rec Committee, I'm probably paying more attention. If that can be added in, that'd be good. Thank you, at some later date.
All right, well, that'll come up for discussion through the committee, so it's something for the chief note. Councillor Noonan.
Oh, thank you. Just a question on page 124 of the attachments was the CBD revitalisations are being removed in the council's priorities for the next 3 years. I was just a bit confused as to why it's been removed.
Just repeat that page number for us.
124.
Thank you.
If I could answer that through the chair, that's just a movement. It was under corporate, it should have been under economic, and so we've shifted it.
That's really good, because I was a bit worried it had been removed. The other question I've got, it's nothing in particular, I just found some spelling mistakes on the way, and I presume that those will be picked up.
Yes,
if minor amendments, adjustments, etc.
All right, if you could just see Ms MacDonald after the break, that would be great, passing those through. All right, no further questions? All right, thank you. Do I in that case, I'm happy to move the recommendation in full, and Councillor Barker is happy to second.
Happy to second it, and in so doing to again thank the staff for a very good job, and my fellow councillors I thank also for the process that we went through. It's long, demanding, but I think we've done a very good job. I look forward to, as a chair, to perusing the letters that go out to our submitters before they go out, and as always, I would like to have seen our rate increase lower, but we did examine it very carefully, and I consequently am happy to second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Any other speakers? No other speakers, then I'll just speakers are right to reply and the mover in one, and echo Councillor Barker's thanks to the organisation who supported development of this long-term plan. I think we are very fortunate to have such a capable team who work both through the pre-consultation processes with the community, very strong engagement, bring forward advice to us. It is a fairly time-consuming and arduous process. We have used a method of doing several workshops through this to bring it forward, to make sure that when you come to the table that you are as informed as you possibly can be about the matters that have come through your committees. So each committee has dedicated a lot of time to hearing about, to understand the asset management plans and activity management plans that build this document, because there are a number of documents that sit behind the long-term plan. Like every long-term plan, there is always room for improvement, and it always gets to the point where we sign it out and I'm already starting to think about the next one, and that's the way it should be, because these are living documents. So as you sign this one out today, your committees will be starting. I met with the chairs yesterday, and I'm looking for every committee to have its own work program to pick up the direction of this long-term plan. I think when we spend governance time, we should be spending at least 70% of that time looking forwards rather than looking backwards. So if we're going to make progress in the city, then that's where we need to be, spending our time on our strategic direction and making progress. So you'll be meeting as committees, you'll be looking at how you're going to take a strategic approach to your delegations and the work in front of you, and you'll be looking at a work plan that you're going to deliver along with your with the staff in your particular parts of the organisation over the next 12 months, and I'll look forward to seeing the milestones reached in terms of this long-term plan. It is a process that is going to be subject to change. It'll be subject to change because we will see changes in direction from government, and we've already been able to respond very effectively, I believe, to the change in the government policy statement around transport. So we were fortunate to be able to take a staged approach to the development of the Regional Land Transport Plan, and then we were able to spend some time to incorporate those changes through into the long-term plan. So I'm pleased we could do that. For some councils that was a little bit more difficult because they were a bit further along. So thank you for your willingness to work through that iterative process. I think that's been a good thing for us. And as Councillor Barker said, one of the challenges, and when I speak to different organisations, I say to them, look, we could have delivered to you a 0% rate rise. There's no doubt about that. We absolutely could have done that. But the plan wouldn't look like it does at the moment. It wouldn't have the commitments to infrastructure, to the environment, to lifting council performance and the focus on city development as it does. We could have cut things to the bone. We could have, there are plenty of things that we could have pulled out from this, but I don't believe that that would have been the right direction for taking the city forward and making it the vibrant and thriving community that it is. I'm very supportive, as you know, of the of bringing back to the Local Government Act the 4 wellbeings, and I have worked as Mayor fairly hard to make sure that we continue to deliver a plan around wellbeing. I think the opportunity as we go through into the next long-term plan from the messages that we're getting from Treasury is that we will start to see perhaps a government budget that is focused far more on wellbeings as well, for wellbeings, and then the ability then for that to cascade through, or actually perhaps be driven from the bottom up in this case, to reflect what we do in local government. So that's a very good thing. We're continuing to work in partnership with ministers and different ministries on some of the projects that are within this long-term plan, and the plan has got a very strong focus on developing strengthened partnerships, whether they are on service delivery, whether they are on shared funding partnerships. They're all critically important to us. And I would say that I am very pleased to see the evolution of the focus on our relationship with tangata whenua and Māori in this plan. And again, we are making great strides in that area and will continue to do so. And I think that is very important, and an expectation that I certainly have of us as a council. As the youth councillors are here today, I want to acknowledge the youth council for the contribution that you make to building this long-term plan. So Gina and Robbie, if you could just pass back my thanks to the youth council. You've been really helpful in the pre-engagement phases of the plan, of giving us your thoughts and putting forward a very comprehensive submission to the plan, and we really appreciated that. It's important, given that what this plan is very much an intergenerational plan, that it's a plan for the people of today, but it's also a plan for the community of tomorrow. So thank you very much for your assistance. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, we'll go on to the next item on the agenda, which is, oh, there's lots of pages to turn over. Memorandum of Understanding, item 12 of the Nelson Regional Sewerage Business Unit, and the amended terms of reference of the Nelson Tasman Regional Landfill Business Unit. Now you've got some tabled amended documents here, and the Chief Executive has just asked Mr. Doherty just wishes to speak to the table document.
Madam, can I just ask or make a quick comment? I've just read this, even though it was advised earlier there was some changes coming.
Perhaps Deputy Mayor, if you could just pause, because the Chief Executive has asked to do some introductory comments, and I'll come to you after the Chief Executive.
Thanks.
So I just wanted to explain, you will have received revised recommendations. Now, I just wanted to explain the background to that. In some ways, well, no doubt about it, I broke my own rule here about taking our time and making sure we get things right. This report was originally scheduled to come to the August meeting of the council, and I said, no, that's too far away. We need iwi representatives on the Regional Sewerage Business Unit and the Landfill Business Unit as quickly as possible. So I prevailed upon Michelle to write this report at short notice while she was up to her neck in the long-term plan. We deliberately did not engage with iwi about this because, as I explained at the joint council meeting, we don't want to be going back to iwi with to encourage them to put representatives back on these two boards until we can deliver them a positive message about voting rights and payment. So unfortunately I hadn't quite made that clear to Michelle when she was writing the report, which is why we have now changed the recommendations to the revised words that you have seen. But the clear intention is that once this council has considered it, and if they support it, and if Tasman District Council support it next week, then the next stage will be then to engage with iwi, show them the commitment of both councils, and would they please appoint representatives to each of those two boards, because we do need their expert opinion. Both the Resource Management Act talks about input from iwi, the Local Government Act talks about input from Māori. They have an expert view that we need on those boards. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, I've just seen these changes. It's been recommended to us. In the principles, I have no problem. And it's the wording, I think you may. I hate doing this, but the wording that you have here, I don't think is correct. If you look at point 2, approves in principle subject to support from iwi, I don't know whether you can ask for support from iwi for them to be paid. I would prefer to see subject to discussions with iwi, as you have outlined under the notes in point 7, where you say iwi will be consulted. If we could keep the word consulted in there, I think would be far more acceptable to everybody generally, because that's what iwi want to do. They want to be consulted. I don't think we should ask for their support until that consultation is held. Madam, that's my only concern.
Chief Executive and I've had some discussion around this, and I think the word support is appropriate. We need to have support of iwi, there needs to be some discussion, and most importantly there needs to be engagement. I'd quite like us to sort of try and move from, in terms of our relationship, from one where we are consulting with to engaging with, because I actually think that's the appropriate that's the appropriate ethos of where we are at. So I think this is absolutely appropriate that we want this to move forward with support from iwi on all of these matters.
Madam, if I must come back to that and say through the wording of consultation you are seeking support, and that's how I read it.
I think the Chief Executive has worked with the governance advisors about the terminology, and I'm comfortable with that, so I'm actually I think this is the appropriate terminology. It needs to be with the support. I'm happy to hear some other argument on that, but what I'd actually prefer to do is to give the officers the opportunity to present their report, and are there any, other than the tabled recommendations, are there any corrections or additions that you wish to make to the report?
Through the Chair, no corrections or additions.
All right. So
this report deals with the amendments to MOU in terms of reference, and you've read the report, so it's fairly straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the officers? Councillor Delberg.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, my question is, we've already have independent members on some of our committees. My probably concern is that we've actually got them both in the same relationship. I get the difference in people, but if someone's coming onto our committees as independent or a specialist, myself, I'm supporting they get a vote and I'm supporting they getting paid. All I really want to be is that everyone's treated with that same concept, and as long as we've got that in here, I'm comfortable.
Through the Chair, that's exactly what we're trying to establish with these changes.
Any other questions for the officers? Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm just going back to Councillor Matheson or Deputy Mayor's comments, and my question would be then, has this wording been checked with iwi?
Chief Executive.
So, no, as I explained when I introduced it, no, we haven't approached iwi about this yet. We want the support from both councils for these proposals before we go back to iwi. Otherwise, the most disastrous thing would have been if we had gone to iwi, floated this proposal, and then taken it to the two councils, and the answer was no. So there is no right way to do this, but I think this is the least wrong way of doing it. And coming back to the issue of consultation, consultation means you go and you hear people's views and understand them, but they don't necessarily have to agree with you. Whereas in this case, we do want iwi to agree, we do want their support, it's important to us. We do want those representatives on those boards as soon as possible. So that's why the wording is slightly different, and we're looking for something more positive than just consultation.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor McGurk.
Do we have a view or a proposal about the quantum or the size of the iwi representation?
I think it's set out in the MOU as what it's one. I think it's one.
It's one, and is that always one? It's the same one, or is it?
I think that's for iwi to determine.
I think they appoint every 3 years for a 3-year term, but I think also the agreement says they can change their representative at any time, but it's one each on each of the business units.
Right.
Do you think that's still sufficient?
Well, in that there's only, I think, a total of 2 councillors from each council, an independent, and so there's only 6 on, so we think that's an appropriate representation. But I'd imagine that may be part of the discussion with iwi as well.
Thank you. Look, I'm happy to move the tabled recommendation. So do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Fulton. We'll move into debate. Any debate? Right, thank you. I think it's all quite clear. I will put the motion. So, Councillor Barker,
in terms of being quite clear, can I? What we have in front of us, I've taken it that we've, in response to Councillor Matheson's comment, we're changing the wording from subject to support from iwi to with the support of iwi. Are we doing that?
No, we're leaving it as is. Yeah. Yep, we're leaving it as is. I think that there are a series of conditions.
I was comfortable with what he suggested. With the support of iwi.
Chief Executive.
We went with subject to support, so that if we don't get the support of iwi, we'll be coming back to you and telling you that it's all off.
Oh, could still happen.
Yeah. So the discussion I heard from Councillor Matheson was concern about the word support. So I'm comfortable at what
You're correct, Madam Chair, but I suggested that we change the wording only on the principle of what we're doing. I don't have a problem with, but subject to discussions with iwi will give you the outcome you want, and that is the support. But you can't tell iwi what to do, especially at the end of the day, Mr. Chief Executive, when you're asking iwi to actually support a payment for themselves. Sorry.
I think we've gone around this, Deputy Mayor. I'm very comfortable that the wording is correct, and that the way that it is framed in the recommendation is correct, and it is achieving the absolute intent, which is an engagement process with iwi, which we need to undertake. But what the Chief Executive has explained is, if we had engaged in the seeking that support prior to having the support from Tasman District Council, if we or the other way, if Tasman had done that without our support to move this to the next stage, that could have got very complicated. So we're using the best method we can come up with when we've got to get 2 councils to be aligned, and we're hoping very much that when this goes up to the Tasman District Council that it'll go through, and they'll be having, I understand from the officers, the exact same recommendations as we've got today. Yes. All right, I'm going to put it now. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. All right, now, does that conclude our business? And excellent, that concludes our business. So let's, I think we'll just take a morning tea break, and I'll move us into public excluded when we come back, Robin. Oh. Oh, of course, yes, I will. So I will do that. Otherwise, youth council have to come back. So Robin's just suggesting to me that we move into public excluded business now. Our youth councillors, of course, can stay for morning tea, but it means you don't have to hang around till we come back if you don't want to. So councillors, there are a range of items. I'll just having a look at those in your agenda. There are several items there. Just several items here, we're just still in session, so if I could have everyone's attention just because we're going to public excluded, so I just need to know, are there any questions in relation to the items that we've got in public excluded, or any questions around the reasons? The range of items here in your agenda on pages 18, 19 and 20. Everyone's happy with those? In that case, would somebody care to move that we go into? Thank you, Councillor Barker. And I had a seconder over this side somewhere. I'll go with Councillor Dalberg. I'll put that, all those in favour. Aye, against, carried. All right, let's adjourn now for morning tea.